everyone. Welcome to this session on Go Global by Design, brought to you by Netapp Accelerator. I am Madhurima Agarwal and I head the Netapp Accelerator program, which is Netapp's global startup program. As part of this program, we work with B2B tech product startups across the world and equip them with whatever it takes to become successful. That includes, though is not limited to, providing access to world-class mentors, providing access to markets, providing access to various workshops, bringing you masterclasses from faculty across the world, and also a chance to do a POC with NetApp should you qualify for it. This is an exciting opportunity. We have applications open for cohort 9, and you can visit our website startup.netapp.in to submit your applications. Today, in this webinar, we bring you a glimpse of what it is that is the participants who are part of this program get access to. We have Saurav Kavatekar, Director at Netapp, talking about globalization. We have Abhijit Joshi, Founder and CEO of CloudHedge, who's been one of the earlier participants in the program, and he'll share about his journey to accessing global markets through CloudHedge. And to bring out this discussion, we have none other than Madan Mohan Rao from Your Story joining us to have this interesting conversation started. So without much ado, let me invite Madan. Madan, over to you.
Thanks so much. That was Madhurima Agarwal from Netapp. Joining us in this panel, we have Saurav Kavatekar, Director for Product and Support Globalization at Netapp, and Abhijit Joshi, Co-founder and CEO of CloudEdge. Welcome, gentlemen. I look forward to a very good session with you.
Thank you, Madan.
Absolutely. Likewise.
So let's first begin with a question for Saurav. Saurav, you've been in this field for quite a while. You're one of the pioneers of software globalization from India. So what do you think are some important signs that indicate a startup has the potential to go global and get benefit from international markets? Saurav?
Sure, Madan, and thank you. And I would really first express my gratitude to you and Abhijit to be with me on this panel, and thanks to Ty as well for organizing this, and obviously Netapp Accelerator program that has been giving this platform to many like us, right? So to answer your question, I think if we look for potential in a startup, right, to become global company, right? So even if a startup is a new or smaller entity, right, it could have enormous potential to grow in future, right? The global outlook is the key for any startup. Like they should have imbibe global outlook from the beginning. The initial market may be local area, maybe a very small area where they're servicing, selling the products, right? But thinking ahead of time is always beneficial, right? The patience is also key. I think developing a solid revenue base initially is very important. It gives a good solid foundation to go forward. And then comes the important part, which is logistical planning for the future, which actually includes to make sure that you have an understanding of global markets, local laws, taxation policies and trade policies, GDPR and whatnot, right? So all that is very important at the beginning. You also need to start building a strategy around a diverse workforce, human resource plans, right? And then you need to have a good go-to-market strategy. And above all, a product that you want to take to your global international customers, you need to have that product ready for that market through the code that you develop, the design that you have with it. So these are a few things that I think would always have to be considered when we think a product or a startup can go global in future.
Right? Thanks. Let's bring Abhijit now into the discussion. Abhijit, what are some of your thoughts on why should startups expand internationally? Speaking from your own experience, what is it that the global market beckoned to you with? Abhijit?
Yes, so, I think the growth, scaling up and bigger market, these are key things why startups should consider going abroad and going internationally. Obviously, if you're believing the problem you're trying to solve, then why only help the companies or whether that's B2C product or B2B product? Why help customers or clients only who are based out of India? Why not expand that and help others and make their lives easier as well? So it is the signs that why you should, everyone knows before starting a startup, everyone knows that the market fitment and all of that, right? So some products are and will be created only for a local market. Some products are designed to be global in that nature. Whether they succeed when they start the global journey and all that, there are a lot of parameters that will depend. But in general, if if you have reached the peak and then scaling up domestically, then I think then the next line of growth and scaling up is going to come from international business. And so, as I said, the growth, scaling up, access to the bigger market, and in general solving the problem with the bigger set of the people and helping them is I think the key things.
Let me tell that same question to Saurabh. Saurabh, why should startups expand internationally? What do they have to gain from international exposure?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a great question, and it is always good that a startup focuses initially on the local market, because that the company is familiar with that market, the dynamics of the home market, if you will, right? But there are advantages to expand internationally as well. I would really say that enhancing in the international market takes the brand recognition to the next level, to the higher level. It also makes the reputation more formidable for the company. And if you also think about it, opportunity to understand, it gives you an opportunity to understand the diverse markets and cultures around the world, right? Where you want to expand, right, further and do business further. And ultimately, as we know, right, it adds to more profits. It sets the stage for a longer term success. So all those are very important factors that should definitely help any startup if they go internationally.
Thanks, Saurabh. There are also some challenges and obstacles, obviously, which startups face when expanding internationally. What would you list as some of these obstacles and how can they be overcome? Saurabh?
Sure, Madan. So I believe the very key barrier which gets missed maybe initially when startup focuses on the technology and the features and definitely what the core product delivers, the aspect that sometimes gets missed is the language barrier that they may face when they get to the international markets and non-English speaking countries. We all understand that today the way we interact right now and the English is the language of business, but we also know that a hugely customer-centric strategy is very important. It is important to be successful in the market, right? So the more your product gets closer to the customer as much as possible, right, gets your product more recognition, more acceptance in those countries, and speaking customers' language, nothing like it. So, so not just language. In fact, beyond that, it is about the cultural differences, which is the cultural nuances, keeping that mindset. For example, if today, if we bring a left-hand drive car in India, right, it may not sell. There are countries where a community success is more important than individual success. And if a company goes with an individual focusing or highlighting a marketing campaign, maybe it may fall flat. So that's why all those things are important challenges: the language barrier, understanding culture, understanding what are the nuances of that market, that country. All that is very important. And if they are not taken care, they become obstacles as we really think about getting into other markets.
How about in your case, Abhijit, what would you add to that as a startup yourself? What are some challenges you face and how do you think you can get around some of those challenges? Abhijit?
So Saurabh actually covered a lot of them. The language and culture, I think, the US market is kind of an, if I say, easy to grow because it's a known territory, and however, you cannot apply the same model to Europe, because Europe, you can say, well, German-speaking countries, French-speaking countries, Benelux area, Nordic area, South Europe, and each has its own culture. So, I think the language, if I just to double click on what Saurabh said, I think, I 100% agree. And you have to understand the language of customer, you have to understand the culture, and I think selling, just landing there, we may not help. I think you have to, these are the smaller nuances and nitty-gritties of planning. And why that is important, because typically startups don't have funds, right? I mean, startups are equal to lack of funds. So how do you go internationally when you don't have so much of the funds? In our case, we are lucky to have a seed round with one of the reputed SIs from Japan. But after that, 2 or 3 years, we deliberately decided to extend our Series A or pre-Series A round as much as possible. But even within that time, and during the pandemic as well, we still expanded ourselves into Singapore, APAC region, Europe, and US. So when you don't have funds, still I guess you can expand, and still you can carry out those plans. You can always try to find the partners, and it takes, it's a painful process to find the right partner for you, who align with the vision, who align with the business, who have the right connects and all of that. But the easy strategy is to land and expand. You land at somewhere and then try to slowly expand. Other things that nuances are, the taxes. I mean, if you're a startup, again, lack of fund equal to everyone wears like 10 different hats in 10 hours a day, right? So how do you take care of the hiring? How do you hire the right people there? And from that point of view as well, the strategy of having a right partner can help. The taxes, compliances, more you spread, more, more sort of, I won't say nuances, because these are the must to do and essential things to take care of the taxes and compliances in those countries. But as a startup, you don't have those liberties and people to take care of those things. So those are some of the things that someone obstacles, but those could be easily, I won't say easily, but creatively managed.
Creative management. That's a very good piece of advice there for our audience out there. Let's turn now to this whole question of this panel topic is globalization, how to go global. So let me ask us, Saurabh, how useful is software globalization technology for startups when they want to expand to international markets? How does it work? What's involved? What does it take to succeed with it? Saurabh?
Sure. So I believe that has to be a very important and a fundamental thing to consider for any startup that aspires, and I think everyone aspires to go global, right? So technology and involving technology and design at the start of developing a new product, uh, globalization, consideration for globalization is very important, right? And in terms of technology, the first step to have your product be even ready for the global market, uh, there is something called as internationalization of the product code, right? And that means that the product code should follow the standards, the hygiene that is required to be able to have a product converted into multiple languages in the future, to be able to have the product adapt to different market and local nuances, right? So that is very fundamental in terms of technology. And I have seen in my own career, 20 plus years of my career, Madan, that many companies initially, startups who focus on their core product, which is definitely very important, right? The core product, the core functionality, the core offering of their product, miss this aspect initially, right? That's not top of the mind. And even if they occur to have some initial brainstorming around this aspect to imbibe the standard practices, I have seen that the consideration of the cost involved, and I think it's a very important thing to also consider when a startup has to operate with very limited resources, right? Uh, it is expected that including globalization or internationalization technology initially may cost more resources, may need more funding, right? However, the technology has really grown over the year, has improved over the years, evolved over the years. And as far as I have seen, at the technology that we use and we have developed at Netapp, there is some proprietary technology also, which is patented, that we have developed, saves almost 90% of efforts in internationalizing a product code. And it is completely based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. So there is hardly any manual work required, maybe just teach the engine initially, and then it takes care itself, right? So that's a very fundamental thing. And in fact, a wonderful software product can really fail in miserable in international markets if it is not properly globalized. and even if you want to translate, a lot of people think that to translate a product or its documentation may need some translators, or you will have to form a new team inside the company, or you will have to hire a vendor to do that for you. But the technology on that front also is like, today we have neural machine translation or adaptive neural machine translation, right, which actually gives a good enough quality of translated content for your product user interface, documents, marketing material, and whatnot. So all those things are really handy these days. Very less effort and cost involved in it. If it is imbibed in the software, initially really helps do wonders. And in fact, at Netapp, I have seen, and in my previous companies where I have worked, I have seen that enterprise companies, we acquire startup companies for their great potential, but then they fail to scale and cope up with the speed where there's bigger global enterprise companies are working. That's what my experience is. And then we have to do maybe some after work to refactor the code, refactor every thing around the design, and then it takes more time and effort and energy later on in the process after the fact to make the products really global ready. So I think in terms of technology, if I would say, the technology is quite evolved now, right? If you think about it at the time of design, I think that would be the best thing to do, right? As you go ahead, you just apply the latest technologies and make sure that the product is ready for global market whenever you really have that plan to go into other countries. So that's what I would really recommend.
Thanks, Saurabh. That sounds like a great innovation, technology to make technology go global. Abhijit, what's been your experience with using some of this globalization technology as a startup yourself, Abhijit?
Yeah, I think Saurabh made a very good point earlier that you can't build on a day one for the entire global market. I mean, typically you start small, and some products will be designed for domestic market, and which is perfectly okay. But if you think the market fitment is really global and has a potential to grow eventually, you may want to start with the domestic market because that's easy and relatively cheaper to establish yourself than outside. As Saurabh said, that it is usually difficult to create the product which is at the international level, forms the international standards and all of that right from the day one, because there is a cost associated with it. But the globalization technologies, and there are as Saurabh said, Netapp has the patented product that helps companies to not just the translate, but literally convert the existing product into more globalized market and localized for them. So there are certain other technologies available as well. So I think the companies can take a benefit from those and try to develop the strategy to slowly grow and expand, because in the MBA courses they teach the classic thing, right? The Coke advertisement, and which the dehydrated person drinks Coke and then he is rejuvenated, and the same advertisement did not work in the Middle East because it's a left to right reading versus right to left reading, right? So these are some of the smaller things that just translating your application may not solve the problem, and that that's also important consideration of going global. But it has to be just the last point is it has to be a step-by-step strategy, because you may design something for the global, but even the expansion of that and has to be more gradual. And as I mentioned earlier, it is really land and expand. You start picking rather than going internationally and globally for every. You may want to start picking country which is like UK, US, Australia, which speaks English, and you can easily take your product there, and then slowly go to the other nations.
Thanks, Abhijit. This is some very good details you shared with us, the different kinds of steps, the kind of unforeseen consequences, and so on. Now, one of the big questions hanging over everybody's mind these days is this whole pandemic. We are in a second wave. We have no idea when the next wave is or is not going to come. When are people going to go back to the office and so on? So let's take a look at this whole pandemic impact in 3 or 4 different ways. Let's begin with the acceleration of digital. Saurabh, how are you seeing the acceleration of digital during this whole pandemic? Many people are working from home. Everything is moving from physical to digital, etc. So what are some big shifts that you're seeing for the digital landscape in general? Saurabh?
Sure, Madan. And in fact, we all are witnessing a big transformation and the use of digital in our day-to-day lives. I think everybody we are ordering things online. We are using more of these Zoom and all those technologies to interact with each other. While we stay at home, a lot of our things are being done just because the technology is there to help us, right? And what I have seen is over the last 1.5 years or 2 years since we are in this situation, and I'm still hoping that that it will soon get over, right? But whenever maybe in another 6 months or another 1 year, when we have all the vaccinations and everything done, right, the world will not be the same again. I'm pretty sure it will not be the same again. That's because we now know about the power of technology, right? We now know that how it has been helping us in doing our job faster, maybe at a more convenient, in a more convenient way. So even going to the offices is not going to be the same. I think there will be some kind of hybrid model, if not completely work from home and all that, right? And when I think about what Netapp is into, I think there is more need for like, we are generating more data, we are consuming more data, we are playing more with data, analyzing sorry, analyzing the data even more than ever, right? And that is on all the platforms, whether it is on social media, whatever we see, whether it is on any other like in financial technologies, what we see, right? In fact, I was reading that during last 1 year, there are several hundreds and thousands of new accounts, that demat accounts that have been opened in Indian stock market, right? There are no new people coming, and they're all depending on the on this data. And ultimately the technologies like cloud are playing an important role to optimize the use of storage, use of compute, use of the entire experience, right? Giving the entire experience. So that's what I see going forward. Things are not going to be the same. There is a transformation that has taken place. This might have taken maybe another 5 years or 10 years, but it has happened in the last 2 years. And we will be consuming more data. We'll be spending more on managing our data, right? So that transformation has already happened. We have seen that right now.
How about in your case, Abhijit? How do you view the digital acceleration in this COVID space, and how is it affecting you as a company personally, Abhijit?
Yeah, so what Saurabh said is an unprecedented time, right? I think we don't know what what we are going through right now and what will happen, but we have all become virtual conference warriors, switching from Zooms to Teams to Meets and so on. But it's a difficult time for sure for a lot of people and many of them. But if you're talking purely about the software companies, comparatively in the industry, they are the one little bit at ease, if I may say that. And for the startups, there are certain benefits of being in pandemic, and or if they think creatively, then how they can use this current situation where they really cannot travel to their benefit, right? For example, just to attend like conferences like Google I/O, AWS reInvent, and IBM Think, we would have to budget like $20,000, $25,000 for every event. Now, pretty much we can sit here, right here, and attend it at zero cost. So there are certain you can attend a lot of conferences. The travel budget has gone down. You can put back into your product development. You can put that back into the research. Nothing beats like in front of the customer but I think if you are solving a pain point of a customer, and then a lot of people are, as we speak, are already in the pain, right? So if you are taking one pain away from them, and if you're solving and making their lives easier, it is not too difficult to sell, even sitting in India. I think in our case, we as I said, that we really expanded into US and Singapore and European operations last year. We had planned a lot about the driving that sale from India, where our sales staff can actually travel, stay there for a month, come back, will replace, and that was kind of our strategy that we created in 2019 for 2020. Obviously, nothing of that worked, but we saw the certain advantages of we don't have to travel. And even if you are willing to travel, customer doesn't want to meet you because of the risk, right? So customer basically at saying, if you say, well, no, I will come and meet you, then customer says, no, please don't. Let's just get on a phone. Or so it is kind of easy. So I can sit here, I can reach out to literally the world. The same thing I think goes with the hiring. Because this has enabled a lot of companies which even had no culture of work from home, now had adopted it. There is no choice. So we would hire people, so we are based out of Pune, and we'd hire people who are closer to our office so that and we had the work from home policy, right from the day one, 3-4 years back when we started. But now we hired people from Bangalore, from Chennai, from Shimla, and there is really no bar, right? Because these collaborative tools have become more rich and richer to enable you, and in general the understanding of how remote working can be enabled and can be used effectively. I think that everyone has understood. So there are obviously tough times and challenges, but there is silver lining to that, or other side to that as well. And I think for the startups, they, with, again, as I said, lack of funds, they should use no travel to reinvest into product development, research, reaching out to more customers, just sitting there. So there are a lot of advantages as well, and I think it just making best use of what you have.
Thanks, Abhijit, for bringing up the issue of talent and hiring and so on. Sort what are you seeing in terms of the talent impact on this whole pandemic? On the one hand, there's all this stress, anxiety, but also the convenience of being able to work from home in the comfort of your home, increase efficiency, and so on. How does this play out for a company like yours, and what are you seeing in this space?
So, yeah, sure, Madan. In fact, for Netapp, surely like every other company, our workforce is allowed to work from home, and they should be working from home at this time, right? But I think we are seeing this flexibility giving individuals working for, at least on my project, to let them work as per their maybe flexibility during the day. We understand that the thin line between the family and your personal time and the office work definitely is getting more and more fuzzy with this kind of an environment. But at the same time, I believe this gives more flexibility. More people are getting more creative in terms of their ideas. They come up with newer ideas. That's what I see right now. The other flip side to it is, we know that as humans we like to interact. There are so we have our internal team kind of interactions quite often on Zoom and all that. But I think the cross organizational interactions are now less. The over the coffee cup kind of interactions are now lesser than what it was. So there are certain things that are, I think, at least from my point of view, we are missing. But there are other things that are now helping us in terms of the flexibility that we have right now. And obviously, in a city like Bangalore, the commute was the biggest issue, and now for last 2 years nobody is talking about it. So that definitely is eliminated, at least for now. And maybe in the future, when we have more flexible and hybrid kind of working environment, that would have. But overall, I think we are able to see that we can acquire talent from smaller cities, people who may not have been able to maybe travel because of any reason to work for a company in a particular geography. Or maybe if, for example, I myself have changed few cities within India for my own career, during my own career, right? But now if anybody like me has to do that, maybe they have an opportunity that, okay, I can work for a company in Pune, for example. I can work for Abhijit, maybe working sitting in Bangalore, right? I'm not compelled to shift from one city to another and take my entire family to the different place. That flexibility is opening up more talent pool for the employers nowadays. So I think these are some good signs that I can see from this impact of COVID that we see right now.
Thanks, Saurabh. That's a very good shift you've pointed out. In fact, one phrase I often hear is just like WFH, work from home, WFHT, work from hometown. So a lot of people are working from their hometowns, and they're able to plug into the big cities of India anywhere in the world by going online. The other question that comes up in this whole pandemic era is the question of funds and fundraising. What are some of your thoughts on Are VCs investing more these days? Are corporates investing more? Are accelerators attracting more startups and so on? Sort of, what's your take on how this fundraising thing is going to affect startups? Sort of.
So I'm sure. I think as we talked about in the on the previous question, that the technology transformation is expedited. It is accelerated right now, right? There is more need for involving technology in what we do, and I think I will still want to have technology play important role for people in the lower strata of the society, right? There is still a lot of work needs to be done, and I'm sure investment is coming. And I'm sure, in fact, the platforms like Netapp, we have the accelerator program. We are seeing a lot of interest in this program from startups to build that ecosystem where more experienced and bigger companies like Netapp play an important role in helping upcoming budding technology companies, and bring them to the mainstream. I believe investments, interest, and ecosystem is growing much better than ever that what I would have seen so far. So that's my take on it.
That's a great observation, Saurabh. How about you, Abhijit? What's your take? Are you seeing more VC interest in this space? And is it easier for you to get this funding, or this it's more competitive? What's it like?
Comparatively, it is easy, but I think it is never easy to get a funding because but in general, I see there are a lot of VCs. So the startup VCs who spend in a seed stage, post-seed stage, bridge round, pre-series A round, series A round. But in general, what we are seeing, because as I said, we did the seed round 2 years back, and now we are doing our series A or pre-series A round, and we are almost at trying to close it now. At least I can say that we were oversubscribed for series A. So we saw a lot of funds who were interested. So if you're trying to solve a problem, a real problem, because there are too many problems right now during the pandemic, and if you're taking one problem away from them, making life easy, I think people are interested to hear. The customers are interested to hear you, but also investors. There is a good amount of funding which is available, and I think you have to just. It's a matchmaking process essentially, right? You have to understand where you stand in all of the from seed to series A, B, C, where you stand, and some funds only focus on a particular round or particular size, and then so there is a strategy that you can adopt, that to whom to talk first, whom to talk second, and who are those that are really important to you. You actually fine tune your pitch and everything, and then speak. But relatively, I'm seeing that the funds are available, and I won't call it is easier, but relatively it is easier to get you funded. And since you spoke about the accelerator program, I'll be honest that this was our first experience participating in Netapp or any sort of accelerator program. We never did participate in any of the programs. And this is my fourth startup, but for my earlier startups as well, I did not participate in any of the program. But I can clearly see, now I'm thinking that I should have participated in such programs, because it actually gives a lot of credibility. You learn a lot. See, with every experience, there is something that you know that you don't know, but there are many things that you don't know that you don't know, right? So I think having mentors through Netapp and having the channel and help that they provide, I think it certainly helped us. And just you are being part of a program like Netapp, gives you some credibility to go and talk with VCs.
Thanks, Abhijit, for that very good endorsement of the accelerator model. We have another 10 minutes before we take audience questions. So let's get a bit more into this accelerator issue. Saurabh, tell us a little bit more for the sake of the audience on, how does accelerator work? How is it different maybe from an incubator? What's in it for a company like Netapp, and how can startups benefit? Saurabh?
Yeah, sure. I can address that as best I can. So the program itself is a unique program, and I think some of the other major corporates also have similar programs, right? But it is a very unique program that we have at Netapp. It actually involves a good amount of review of the ideas. It involves an amount of understanding of what the potential of a startup is, right? So as Abhijit just mentioned, this, once you have participated in this Netapp Accelerator program, it gives you an additional credibility when you go in front of VCs or in front of your potential customers, right? So that is the value that this program adds to any new startup. I think it's unique because as we, I think people running technology teams at Netapp, we also see what new ideas are coming up in the industry, because otherwise we are completely laser focused on the same products and technology that we have been working for over several years now. But now we see what is the different, I think, the spectrum of ideas that are around us. So that gives us more, I think, exciting perspective about what is going on around us. And on the other hand, we also are able to see the basic challenges, whether it is from technology point of view or from the operational point of view, when a new technology company comes in the current paradigm of the business, right? So we are, from my point of view, we learn that, and also I'm sure we continue to help throughout the cohort each of the startup companies that are involved with Netapp Accelerator. We invest in terms of technical support. We invest in terms of we have product managers who go and talk and maybe further fine tune the ideas and the roadmaps and things like that, working with the startup. So it's a very good win-win platform for any startup to come up and join, especially when it comes to Netapp Accelerator program.
Thanks, Saurabh. In your case, Abhijit, how did you hear about the accelerator, for example? How did the engagement get structured? Where is it going and so on? Can you share some of your experiences with this accelerator model, Abhijit? Sorry,
I was on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, so someone from my team told me, and I, as I said, I was skeptical that, hey, I mean, I don't know whether these really work. We already are wearing so many hats, and you know, we don't want to take another obligation. And does it really help us? Will it really help us? And all. So, but you know, I think I said, well, you know, at least let's participate, and we can always, you know, say no if we don't see the value. But I think after doing the demo and initial conversation, I think it was clear that this is not. So it, you know, in terms of the fund, that, you know, it's a small amount of fund. It's really a grant, a small grant that you get. But more than that, it's the technology mentorship. You get to speak with pretty senior and really talented minds within Netapp on what is your product strategy? Does it really work? Will it really help work? And how you should fine tune it. Working with the marketing guys on what should be the story. And you know, what I realized is we were selling the product. We are not selling the solution. We are selling what we have built on in terms of the technology. But you know, through Netapp, we got to meet some of the, you know, brilliant marketing minds, and that told us that how, you know, you should not sell the product, or you should not sell the technology. How you should sell a solution. What is the problem you are trying to solve? And that sort of changed our mind the way we were, and we definitely saw that impact of that onto our marketing and our sales. But so it's a small amount of grant and fund, but it is more than, you know, I think you get to know, you meet, you know, other brilliant minds, others. So in your cohort, I'm sure you will have all the, you know, brilliant technology and creative minds that you will exchanging thoughts and ideas with them is very helpful to clear up your thoughts and organize your thoughts. And Netapp, you know, gave us the mentorship and guidance in terms of the marketing, in terms of the technology strategy, and in terms of how we should really go global and expand ourselves. So it tremendously helped us, as I mentioned earlier.
Thanks, Abhijit. We're getting some questions now coming in. One question I have is, what is some success factors for a good alignment between a corporate and a startup? They obviously have very different sizes, histories, legacies, cultures, tools, and so on. So what makes for a good alignment between the two? Saurabh, any take on that? Comments?
Yeah, I think the first thing is the intent, right? There are a lot of companies who want to go global, right? But when we might maybe dig deeper, that intent has to be there, right? That you want to go global, you want to go big, right? The other thing is the technology that you are in. Obviously, I think there are variety of the the ideas and the technology that Netapp Accelerator program has supported so far and will continue to support. But there is an inherent theme, at least from a Netapp point of view, where we manage data, or that's our key focus on, right? So that is another important thing where any startup can think about and want to align with the Netapp. And I believe the idea overall needs to have a good potential going forward, right? And maybe there could be some rough edges, and as Abhijit mentioned, right, there could be brilliant minds on the either side who can sit together, work on it, and polish it further. But that the potential needs to be there, and once I think the program identifies that it aligns with our strategy, we definitely want to work with such companies.
Thanks, Saurabh. In your case, Abhijit, you worked with a number of startups already. You've had corporates as your customers, but now you have a partner sort of as a big corporate. What are some success factors for a good partnership you would suggest to our audience?
It is easy to get partner. I mean, if you had few meetings, then and typically the partnership would end at putting logos on your website and all of that, right? But that is quite passive partnership. So I think it is one of the pitfall that startups fall in, because a number of partners doesn't mean that they will work for you. I think you have to make them understand the value you're bringing to their business. Then only they will be able to, or they will be willing to do something which will create some mutual win-win. So I think just double clicking on what Saurabh said in terms of the alignment. Putting logo on the website should not be it. I think getting it to the next level where it actually creates the revenue earning opportunities for both. And you may not. I think you can select your partners. I think even if you're a startup, because it's an investment that you're doing, and you have to give the time. So you cannot expect something from a day one, because there will be some partners. If you have a product, then there will be some partners who will come to you because they have a particular opportunity, and they will talk to you. They will take that opportunity, or they will work with you on that opportunity. But as soon as that opportunity fades away, that partnership will slowly get into the passive mode. And then there will be strategic partners who may take a long time and move slowly, but then there is at least definitely strategic alignment in terms of what you are producing and what you have makes sense for them and their customers to take them to the market.
Thanks, Abhijit. There's one more question that's coming now about security. What would you suggest a cyber security services startup can do to expand the global markets? So any comments on maybe taking a step back? How big is the security market now? I mean, everyone's working from home, so security is a huge concern, of course. So what are some aspects of the market that are opening up, and how can startups in this space maybe get into it and go global? Saurabh, you want to take a start with that?
Sure, Madan. I think there is no end to the need for security. The more we evolve, right? The more we evolve in the technology space, the more there will be need for security, and there is always an opportunity. So that's maybe a one-line answer, but overall, we know that more and more things getting on cloud, right? There are more dependency on digitally managing everything. Even today, we hardly maybe withdraw cash from ATM, right? We all depend on all the digital transactions, right? Today. Similarly, we are on Zoom, we are on all the social media apps. Everywhere, I think there is an enhanced need for security these days. So I would say that there is all, I think, immense opportunity in this area if somebody wants to explore more.
How about in your case, Abhijit, what are you seeing in the security space, or otherwise in your own domain? How did you find this domain to get into, and what made you get into this global route? Abhijit?
Yeah, so talking first about the security is quite wide area and horizontal. So, I think who are asked, I don't know which area of the security that they are addressing to, but there are always the people find ways to break the security and the holes, find the holes, right? So security, there is ongoing demand, and there will be ongoing demand for better tools or products or platforms that can offer better security. And it is, I think, as Saurabh said, it is more evolving space. The second part of the question, how do we come across, what we do? So, right. So my earliest startups, they were into containerized cargo space. So we solved very niche problem, and we had very niche set of customers and domain to address to. But I was really thinking of creating something absolutely more horizontal after that. And everyone was working on cloud migration. And we thought that, again, maybe we can create another tool for cloud migration, but it will be better than anyone else out there. But instead of doing that, we thought, okay, what is going to be potentially after cloud migration? Because this is where I see that there is a market, but everyone is jumping in. So should we just be part of that and build something which will be one more tool, or whether we should take a drastically different approach and see what will be potentially after that? And we thought that is going to be application modernization. So migration is a way we move customers to the cloud, but what we are really doing is application modernization. May you be on Windows, Linux, or AIX, or any legacy platforms, we actually can containerize you. And so it was a little bit very different approach that we took in terms of jumping into the what everyone is doing. And that is another thing for the startups, that if you are doing what everyone else is doing, then where is the differentiator? So
thanks, Abhijit. A couple of other questions have come in now. This one is, what are some common excuses startups have for not going global? Maybe broader than excuses, what are some mindset shifts that have to take place before they want to go global? So how do you get into the global mindset? What's holding people back from that? Saurabh, you take a crack at that?
Sure, Madan, and I think it's a good question. The first thing is, I have seen and interacted with the people from startup companies. They initially don't really even believe in themselves that they will go really big and maybe go global in some time in future, right? So that's a mindset initially, that they understand that, okay, the local market is good enough for them to do a business. But I think that good enough mindset itself is not good, right? The other important thing is, as I said, right, every startup company has a very focused strategy around their new idea, new features, and the technology that they are developing. And that means there are a lot of other aspects, not just about globalization, the design part of the globalization, the technology part of the globalization, but the other hygiene factors of a product development that are always important. It's not just that, okay, just for a software, maybe a startup company, but they are also important for any big enterprise company as well, like Netapp, that we always, all those abilities that a product should always make sure are taken care, whether it is security, like we just discussed about, scalability, performance, all of that, right? So all those abilities that a software product should have needs to be thought at the time of initial design phase of the product. And I think there has to be no excuse about it, because in future, when the company gets bigger and is potentially going out in more markets, that's where the problem starts, right? And then you need to refactor your code. You need to really spend more energy and funds to get the things right. It's better that people understand that this excuse doesn't work, and they factor that into in the initial stages of the development, product development. So
Thanks. In your case, Abhijit, what are some mindset changes, shifts that you had to take to get into this global mindset?
So, I mean, honestly, in my case, my earliest startups had been actually the US startups, because I was in US and before I'm moving back to US for the good. But, as Saurabh said, the thought that you have to be the product and the market that you're addressing, it is really global. If you know that from day one, then I think it has to be built into your design, that how you can eventually grow and how you can. So it has to be, it cannot be afterthought, because then either it becomes a bandit approach, or it becomes too expensive to redo things. So yeah, that will be, I think, otherwise Saurabh covered most of the things.
Great. Yeah, I think both of you made some good points there. Good enough is not good for a global market, and you can't have it as an afterthought. It has to be baked into the process. There's another great question which has come in, which is, when you want to be a globalized company or a globalized product, what do you do on day one? What do you do on day two? What are the sequences, phases? Maybe what's the maturity curve for the globalization journey? Saurabh, you want to start that one?
Yeah, I think back to the same thing that you need to have that mindset. You need to believe in yourself, right? I know that it is very like things start very small, right? And there is a huge constraint of resources that we have. Like any startup has to go ahead and in their initial stages, right? Everything is so important that a decision which is made wrong in the initial phase may completely change the direction where you're going, right? So every startup company, the strategy that they make has to be carefully crafted at the initial stages from the day one. But the belief that this new company has to have in itself, the people who are founders and the promoters of this company have to have in with them, that belief is the most important factor, I think, because every new company starts very small. All those good great ideas have great potential, right? But if they think about getting global, maybe in some point of time in future, and start developing that as part of their design and their code, right, it will definitely pay off when they are more stable and grown in their local market, and now they are ready for the getting into international markets.
How about in your case, Abhijit? How did you break down your globalization journey? Would you break it down into phase one, two, three, something of that sort?
Yes, certainly. So, as I mentioned, the product, which basically what our thought process was, any company that has a legacy and wants to modernize to modern architectures should be our customer. So, essentially, we thought on a day one, hey, then world is our customer, and thought is good, but how do you sell it to the world when you are relatively unfunded or company, right? And that's where we decided and created the strategy of partnering with GSIs, and that's where I meant that you can have partners who will look good on the website, but how you really make the partnership work and make it win-win, that becomes a key. So the day one consideration has to be into the design and the software design, and I think Saurabh touched base on some points on that. But apart from the design part of the software design part, how do you execute that? There has to be a fund allocation, there has to be risk, and how do you manage the risk around it? There has to be a proper strategy to, as I mentioned, land and expand. And maybe if you don't want to get into directly into the funding round, then the easiest thing for you is to find companies who are already connected to your customers as a partners, and then sell them to that. So you can sell with channel. So there are various strategies that companies can adopt to, and those could be the day two strategy. Day one has to be the thought process and the design part.
Thanks, Abhijit. Another question that's coming, I think we can take one or two questions before we wrap up, is when you expand across India, that itself is a lot of cultures, a lot of languages, etc. So isn't that sort of kind of like globalization anyway? So what's the difference between expanding across India and expanding across the other languages and cultures of the world? I think some of this we talked about address, but maybe we can dig into it some more. Abhijit, you want to start that one?
Yeah, sure. I can. Yeah, so India itself is a world, right? So every state thinks it's the center of it. So it's not, as I said, it's not just about the translating the language and translating the currencies and it is about speaking the customer's language and customer's culture. If you're expanding, if you're selling it to the global market, then you also have to comply. How do you follow the compliances? For example, if you're doing anything in Europe, then how are you taking care of the whole GDPR compliance? If you're selling in the US or the European federal market and government agencies, then there are certain level of compliances. How we are taking care of those. So India itself is a huge mix of different cultures, but we are still bound by a single thread. If you're selling it to the global, where I think the cultures are entirely different, and then how do you expand? You build a product to be hosted, let's say, in your data center, right? I think everyone is doing a product development on a cloud these days. If you are doing something for US, it has to be, or federal space, it has to be hosted in the US. Even the email address and email servers have to be hosted in the US. The people who have access should be the US citizens. If you are doing something in Europe, then again, in European Union, there are some laws, but even every country has some sort of nitty-gritty laws, and so you have to understand those and get into that. So it is quite lucrative, and it is a bigger market, and I think everyone should think. But there are certain differences selling in different states within India where going out of India.
Thanks, Abhijit. There was one question or maybe one comment earlier on incubators and how universities also have incubators. So, Saurabh, do you work with universities? Do you work with incubators and take their early stage startups into your accelerator, for example?
I don't think we are going through that process right now, and that also is an option. But I think Accelerator is a very unique program where we go with some startups which have done some works already, and then we evaluate to how we could have a very win-win situation, right? But I think you can send across your inquiry. I think the people who are evaluating the startups to be involved, I think they will definitely take a decision. So if you're looking for it, definitely send your inquiry.
Right. I think my understanding is incubators are much early stage, whereas accelerators are more mature product fit stage. I think there's one last question which we can take now, which is, would Netapp be interested in consumer specific brands? Maybe not so much technology brands, but are you looking at other spaces also other than technology? Saurabh?
Well, so I think when Netapp, so basically Netapp has cloud products and they are part of hyperscalers, and then the end consumers also, or maybe at least the small and medium businesses, definitely leverage our technology through that means, right? Netapp has a very well-defined product strategy, right, where we focus on enterprise software, data software, and also the cloud products, and managing data across different clouds. So that's our data fabric story. So Netapp definitely has a roadmap of products which is very well defined, and there is some consumer aspect in the cloud products that we build. But yeah, we have more, maybe I think, larger products and products like ONTAP, which fit into the data centers and also are supporting cloud big hyperscalers these days. So that's where we are right now.
Thanks, Saurabh. Before we sign off, I should announce that Netapp Accelerator is accepting applications for cohort number 9. So startups who are in the space, not just these spaces, but other spaces as well, but including hybrid cloud, IoT, big data analytics, deep learning, virtualization, cybersecurity, data management, Kubernetes, containers, and other adjacent areas can apply. Also, tech startups with women co-founders can apply for Netapp Accelerator, which is at HER at the end for women entrepreneurs. This is a B2B deep tech accelerator program for women entrepreneurs. We're almost out of time now, but before I thank the audience and for giving all your questions, etc., I must also thank our two panelists, Saurabh and Abhijit, from both ends of the spectrum, corporate and startups, for their excellent insights. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Thanks, Abhijit. Some takeaways for me are, before we finish, are the 3 A's: ability, agility, and attentiveness. So you have to be very agile and take a look at how the technology platforms are changing. You have to take a look at the abilities of your team to look at global cultures, global technologies, and so on. And last of all, you must have that alliances with people in the space. So alliances with accelerators, alliances with corporates, alliances with startups are very important. So on that note, I think we need to wrap up. But once again, Saurabh and Abhijit, thank you so much. Vijayata, any comments from you before we wrap up? Vijayata, you're on mute. Sorry, you're still on mute.
Okay, better now?
Yeah.
Better now?
Yeah.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yeah, it's okay now. Go ahead.
So thank you everyone, and want to endorse what Madan is saying. It's a fantastic program. The Netapp team really cares, and the very fact that they have got a focus on women entrepreneurs is something that you should take full advantage of. So please, this is an endorsement, and apply for this program. And thank you so much, Saurabh and Abhijit, for your inputs. It has been a masterclass for us. And Madan, as always, your moderation is world class. We really love it. And I really like what you said about those 4 A's, right? Alliances, ability, and being attentive, and agility. Awesome stuff. Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Give us your feedback, because we want to do more of such wonderful sessions, combine and work with the ecosystem. And take care, everyone. All the very, very best. Thank you.
Thank you. It
Thanks.
was a pleasure being here, Abhijit, Madan, and Vijeta, and everyone. Thank you.
Likewise.